Over the last few decades, dollar stores reached seemingly unstoppable momentum, dwarfing giants like Walmart and McDonald's in terms of numbers. These are like the cockroaches of the capitalist world that you can't seem to get away from, except they're shutting down. And as much as we love to hate cockroaches, when even those little buggers are dying off, you know something isn't right. A huge thank you to Ground News for sponsoring today's video. Now, if you're alive and well and on the internet, you might have seen some other videos about dollar stores, but in recent developments, we have learned that we needed to cover it as well. But if you are already a little bit up to date, you probably already know that dollar stores are the absolute rock bottom of consumerism. These places are, without exaggeration, pure exploitative opportunism that feeds off the poverty of the world in order to make a few extra bucks for already wealthy billionaires. So let's get into this shit heap of a story, shall we? Now, dollar stores suck in a variety of colorful and profound ways, but one thing that I think we have to get into right off the bat is how these stores do so well. Basically, they enter a community and completely crush local businesses by selling trash products that are impossibly cheap for other businesses to compete with. Because of their cheap prices and their vast number of locations, they kind of become a staple for a lot of lower income people across America out of necessity. But it turns out that their prices are often more per unit than bulk options elsewhere, their staff are treated terribly and are underpaid, and despite all of this, more dollar stores than ever are closing their doors. Now, as we go through the video, I want you to just hold a question in your mind here. Dollar stores are one of those rare businesses that do better when times are really bad. So riddle me this. What does it mean when even dollar stores are closing their doors? Now, up until now, dollar stores had what seemed like a foolproof business model. There is literally never a time when people don't want cheap stuff. During better times, you can count on more middle-class demographics purchasing random knickknacks and home decor and party supplies, etc. And then when times are bad, there are so many more people desperate for affordable necessities. You're guaranteed to have a steady stream of customers no matter what. Nothing is as cheap, as convenient as the dollar store down the road if you need something now and you can't wait for shipping, which is part of the reason why we've seen dollar stores thrive during recessions, pandemics, and the so-called retail apocalypse itself, when so many other stores are closing. And how do we know dollar stores are closing down? Well, because of stories like these that we found on Ground News, an app and a website dedicated to gathering thousands of news articles all in one place to give you the full context. We keep working with Ground News because we love their platform and we think that you will too, so check them out at ground.news/futureproof. Now, a lot of the articles that we found for this story focus on the company's fourth quarter losses as the reason for these store closures. But cycling through headlines, we can see CBC specifically highlights Family Dollar's acquisition 10 years ago as the cause, while this article from the Daily Caller blames harsh economic factors. Easily seeing the different ways articles frame a story to get your attention is a really interesting feature of Ground News. But another thing I love is their blind spot feed. This is a specific feed on Ground News dedicated to showing you what the left and the right are and are not focusing on. Here you get easy access to the other side's news reality and see the full picture of what's going on in the world. It also means that you won't miss anything if you gravitate towards one end of the spectrum or the other. They even show blind spots in reporting for topics that you're interested in too, like the economy. Ground News is a really great way to empower yourself to make informed decisions by helping you to sharpen your critical thinking skills. So I encourage you to dive right in by going to ground.news/futureproof, or you can scan this QR code to get started. You can join for less than $1 a month or use our link in the description to get 40% off their unlimited Vantage Access plan, which is what we use here at Futureproof. So you might be thinking, wow, Levi, it's almost as if dollar stores are incentivized to keep people poor. And you would be right. See, their very business plan exacerbates poverty by default. Just think about it. One of the biggest costs for any item or product that you buy today is the human labor costs that took to produce that item. So you quite literally can't sell things dirt cheap while paying people a living wage, and certainly not while remaining a small-scale local business. It's just a fact of business today that massive corporations have distinct cost advantages, such as good deals on bulk purchases. So when these massive businesses come into a community, they're paying around 10 people, the most minimum wage possible, and trying to only staff 1 employee per shift. And as a result, the staff members of most dollar stores end up being the clients of the places that they work in. It's issues like these that lead many experts to say that dollar stores, while on paper offering a necessary service to impoverished communities, actually make the problem worse, which is unfortunately better for that business's bottom line, or at least it used to be. But things are changing, and not necessarily for the better. For a while there, it seemed like the news about dollar stores was about how they're just getting bigger. They're conquering America, community by building thousands of new stores every single year. In 2022, almost half of all stores opening announced in the USA were dollar stores. And the thing is, we had kind of shelved this story for this channel because it seemed like that was kind of all it was gonna be, and other channels had already talked about that. But just recently, there have been a number of headlines like these. It turns out every major dollar store chain is experiencing some kind of financial difficulties. Dollar Tree, after acquiring Family Dollar, announced that it's closing 1,000 stores. 99 cents is shutting down entirely, while the almighty Dollar General has witnessed some stagnation too. They wanted to build 1,500 stores this year, and now they're looking to build only 800. Now, I think we should all just take a quick moment of silence while we appreciate the minor setbacks of a monolithic corporation and hit that like button at the same time. Now, of course, there are a number of reasons why this may be happening, which we're gonna get into, but I think the issue can be summed up in one simple headline. Dollar stores' shittiness finally catches up to them. Because it turns out you can't just aggressively and indefinitely expand while cutting corners and constantly screwing over your staff and supply chains without any repercussions. And up until this point, it really feels like dollar stores were relying on the monopoly of people's desperation to keep them afloat. That's why they could get away with things like rat infestation, unpacked boxes blocking entire aisles, and constant stream of armed robberies. Everybody knows that if you have nowhere else to get food, the place that has the rats and the armed robbers is kinda all you have left. The sad reality is that the gains from cutting corners far outweigh the costs when you operate a business at this scale. But we have our limits, it seems, and we've reached them. Over the last few years, we've witnessed protests against these stores and laws to limit their expansion. But I hate to say it, it is not the protests that are closing these stores. Inflation and the economy at large is so bad that even dollar stores are getting too expensive. Most of us by now are pretty aware that these stores haven't technically been dollar stores for a long time. Of the big names, Dollar Tree was the last holdout, and in 2022 they upped their median price to $1.25 after 35 years of being $1 flat. This was naturally followed by protests from intense Dollar Tree fans, but the move was so successful that just recently they announced another price increase. They were so stubborn for so long on that dollar price point, and now it's just taken 2 years to increase their base price to $1.50, with some items getting up to $7. But $1.50 Tree just doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? I think the honest truth is a lot of these stores counted on the fact that there was literally no other legal options for a lot of people to get by. And they didn't realize that at some point people would get so poor that they just stopped shopping, period. Which also probably at least partially explains some of the looting that they experienced. And of course, we can't blame dollar stores entirely for this, right? Honestly, I'm kind of amazed that Dollar Tree lasted as long as a real dollar store with inflation the way it is. They are just another cog in the machine that is this giant economy that has ultimately failed to serve the people who just need to eat and try to be happy. And what baffles me about this story is how it is just such a quintessential example of everything wrong with American-style capitalism. On paper, we're all about making a profit, but I don't really think that we've stopped to think about some of our tactics. Listen, I'm not an economist, but I feel like a very basic fact is that if you systematically destroy your customers' ability to afford anything, eventually they won't be able to afford you. But the way that our whole economic system and mindset is structured, big businesses are not even allowed to think about the long-term consequences of their actions. And sadly, big businesses are increasingly running the show, both because of the horrible government policies that we have in place and our own fixation on cost above all else. There is a ton to unpack here, of course, which you can't fit into this video, but I think a lot of us can see that we live in a society that favors big businesses in a variety of ways. And the problem with big businesses is that they are by necessity short-sighted. This is an issue with all publicly traded companies. We've talked about this before in a few other videos, but basically anytime a company is owned by a bunch of shareholders on the stock market, that company has a legal obligation to serve those shareholders' best interest, which oftentimes is interpreted as maximizing profits above all else. To that end, there's a huge emphasis on quarterly profits, how much a company makes in just 3 months' time. And it's never just enough to make the same amount of money that you made the last 3 months. It's never enough for Amazon to continue making X number of dollars per quarter. Shareholders expect constant growth. And the frustrating thing about this is that this isn't the default. It isn't the only other option. In our REI video, we talked about how that particular company was able to take things slower and make smarter long-term business moves that benefit everyone by retaining a co-op structure. But sadly, that is really not a standard, and it is incredibly uncommon these days. Because the thing is that this business model is baked into pretty much the fabric of our society. Unless you're Amish and somehow still watching this YouTube video, you pretty much have to participate in this system. Everyone from normies to CEOs depend on it. Just think about it. If you're a millennial or a Zoomer hoping to one day afford a house, you're probably going to have to at least save a couple $1 million to get a down payment. But how do you do that when inflation eats about 1 to 10% of your savings every year? Well, there are some very strange niche solutions out there, I'm sure, that YouTube channels will tell you about all the time. But one of the best ways historically is to invest in stocks and bonds, which are basically the same businesses, the same giant corporations that are making it so hard for us all to succeed in the first place. And this is basically the foundational question that our team wrestles with on the daily. How to make it in this world without sacrificing our souls in the process, or how to just buy stuff and not feel bad about it. There is no one easy answer or quick fix, but the simplest and corniest place to start is to support the businesses that support you. If you're one of the lucky people out there that doesn't have to shop at a dollar store for your essentials, do yourself and everyone else a favor by taking your business elsewhere. For all the bad about this economy, the beautiful thing is that your dollars still have power. Putting them somewhere else that contributes to society and to your community rather than draining it is one of the easiest ways to make all of our lives better. Because here's the thing about business. It's actually not good business to destroy your customer base. Companies like Dollar General, Walmart, and Amazon are all infamous for their questionable effects on local economies, the environment, and people in general. And it really seems that a lot of them are suffering to some degree because of it. And I can't help but think that maybe that's something to do with their obsession with constant growth. I mean, I know that we are just cattle to these corporations, but if you don't take good care of your cattle, eventually they'll stop producing milk. So for the love of all that is good and holy, shop local while you still can. Get involved with local co-ops, meet some farmers, grow your own food, invest in small businesses, start your own businesses, I don't know, and maybe just try and make things a little bit better in your day-to-day life. And if you did get something out of this video other than just a little bit more depressed, make sure that you like it, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.